Right now, there are dozens of YouTube channels pulling in millions of views a month with the same formula. A faceless figure in a suit, a Tokyo commute, and sad subtitles about working 17-hour days. Western audiences absolutely eat it up, leaving sympathetic comments and sending donations by the bucket load. They share the videos and say, this is why Japan's work culture is broken. But the thing is that most of these people aren't salarymen. They aren't overworked, and many of them don't even live in Japan full time. What they are is content farmers running one of the most effective grifts YouTube has ever seen. And today, we're going to break down exactly how the pipeline works, why it's so effective, and why your algorithm keeps feeding it to you. To understand where this trend comes from, you have to understand a bigger story first. The explosion of Japanese and Asian media in Western culture over the last decade. This isn't subtle. Anime went from niche to Netflix's most binged category, while K-pop continues to break Billboard records year after year. Even Japanese convenience store haul videos became a genre unto themselves. The Western appetite for East Asian exploded, and YouTube, as it always does, reflected that shift in real time. If you want to trace the lineage of the modern salaryman video, the closest ancestor is Paolo from Tokyo. Paolo was an expat who used to film random review videos of products, restaurants, a few travels in the mix, and travel how-tos. A majority of his videos were filmed in Tokyo, hence his channel name, and in 2019, Paolo started a day in the life series where, instead of showing his day, as was popular back then, he showed the days of, quote, regular people. His first video in this series was titled Day in the Life of a Typical Japanese Office Worker in Tokyo, and he eventually tackled professions like delivery workers, game programmers, manga artists, firefighters, and even the average salaryman. His format is what most of these newer channels are imitating, at least on the surface. It'd follow workers through their real working day, showing authentic workplaces and routines with real people who agreed to be filmed. But Paolo's content, for all its success, had built-in constraints. He needed access, willing participants, and above all, permissions to film inside offices, restaurants, factories, and the like. That takes time, relationships, and genuine on-the-ground presence in Japan. The channels we're going to talk about today looked at Paolo's blueprint and thought, what if we just skip all that? What if we keep the aesthetic but strip out everything that's real? So let's get into the modern grift. What's actually going on, and to what extent is this content being pumped out? We pulled Social Blade data on the Patient Zero channel called Salaryman Tokyo and 4 of its biggest copycats, and the timeline is pretty clear. Salaryman Tokyo started posting long-form videos as early as October 2024. Their viewership stayed relatively flat for months, but their views exploded between June and August of 2025. Keep that specific summer timeline in mind, and now look at the creation dates for the next wave of these channels. We have Tired Tokyo, Lost Salaryman in Japan, Hopeless Salaryman in Tokyo, and Homeless Salaryman. All of their data starts immediately after Salaryman Tokyo had their massive viewership spike. Essentially, just like in the Paint Explainer content farm we explained recently, once the concept was proven by Patient Zero, in this case Salaryman Tokyo, the rest started popping up like mushrooms, one after another, and seemingly without end right now. Now, we can't definitively say whether Salaryman Tokyo and the other channels plastered on the screen are 100% deceptive, because it's impossible to tell, but what is certain is that a large percentage of these channels are, backed by evidence from a fellow YouTuber and Reddit sleuths to boot, which we'll get into later. But for now, just have a look on your screen for a second. If you type Salaryman Japan into the YouTube search bar like this, and then click the channel filter, an insane number of these channels come up, and that's just with those specific keywords. If you're bored and have 30 minutes or so, you could probably find at least 1,000 separate channels with the same vague Salaryman Tokyo branding. What's striking is how templated they all are. You could swap the thumbnails between any of these channels and nobody would notice. The format is that rigid. There's POV footage, a faceless person in a suit, convenience store meals, train platforms at night, and subtitles that read like a depression journal. That's their formula, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. So what does this mean? Well, there are essentially two things fueling the explosion of this content. First, we have the simple independent copycats. These guys are the opportunists hunting for the scraps. If their body looks vaguely Asian and they can get a simplified visa to Japan, they could pump this content out while on a holiday and maybe earn a couple $1,000 depending on how successful the content is. The second driver here is far more Machiavellian though, the content farms. Now, ordinarily, content farms are just annoying and identifiable slop that can be spotted from a mile away. They're companies that leverage AI technology and low labor costs in developing countries to absolutely pump out low quality videos and channels to flat out a niche that they've identified as profitable. So even if you see what you think are different channels from different creators, chances are that many of them are under the same company's umbrella. Now, normally, as I said, this is just annoying, but what makes these content farms different is the way they've exploited this salaryman format to psychologically trick viewers into donating hundreds of dollars at a time in some cases, in addition to the massive ad revenue they pull. To understand how they do this, we have to go into the economics of the slop. Let's start with the formula, and the simplicity is part of what makes this content so insidious as compared to other varieties of slop. First, we have the production. You don't need to be Japanese, you don't even need to show your face. All you need is to look vaguely East Asian from the neck down, own a dark suit, and have a plane ticket to Tokyo. Once you're there, you walk around, ride the trains, go into konbinis for their ramen, basically filming everything you're doing in first person. The footage basically shoots itself. You could buy a rig like this from Amazon or use a free hand shooting video with your phone or a GoPro. The real trick is in the subtitles though. This is where the psychological manipulation is on full blast. And full credit here goes to Paahtis, whose investigation into these channels was genuinely groundbreaking, and I hope I pronounced their channel name right. Paahtis identified that these channels follow a very specific emotional formula. It goes like this. They start with 2 or 3 lines of intense despair, something like "I'm so depressed," or "I have absolutely no money," or "My boss made me stay until midnight again," and then they hit the audience with a 4th line that's slightly uplifting like "This 200 yen cup of ramen is honestly the best thing I've eaten all week." The contrast is entirely deliberate, engineered to make the creator seem resilient and tragically relatable. Someone who has every reason to give up, yet they find a sliver of gratitude in the smallest pleasures. In these videos, the audience sees their own burnout and financial stress reflected back at them in this anonymous figure walking through Tokyo at night. The emotional projection is what drives people to watch, keep on watching, and even directly donate to the channel. It becomes a sort of psychological funnel disguised as a vlog. But to get back to the evidence you were promised earlier, how do we actually know that some of these channels are fake? Maybe some of these people really are overworked salarymen. A fair question, so let's walk through the receipts. Again, enormous credit to Paahtis and to the viewers who caught these details. First, we have the coffee shop bust. One creator claimed his 17-hour workday finally ended at 1:46 AM, which sounds incredibly brutal, right? Except in the background of his shot, there's a coffee shop that closes at 10 PM sharp, and it was still packed with customers, meaning the timestamp was a lie. Then there are the clocks. Viewers have caught background clocks in convenience stores and train departure boards that directly contradict the timestamps these creators slap on their videos. They say it's 2 AM, but the clock on the wall says 8 PM. But the rental office was maybe the most damning one. Paahtis used Google Maps to match the view from a creator's window. This person claimed they'd missed the last train and had to sleep on chairs in their office. But the view matched a rentable office space that costs about $15 for the night. The whole crisis was staged for the price of a meal. And then there's just the basic logistics of it. Real Japanese workers putting in 15 to 17-hour days with a long commute have barely enough time to shower and sleep. The idea that they're also setting up multiple camera angles, acting out morning routines, editing polished 10-minute videos and uploading daily is physically impossible. The math just doesn't work. So, what's the payoff for all of this? These channels are making serious money. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars a month in ad revenue alone because the videos hit all the right metrics. High watch time, strong retention, emotionally charged comment sections, and frequent uploads. On top of that, they're pulling in thousands more through super chat donations and direct contributions from viewers who genuinely believe they're helping a struggling worker survive in Tokyo. They count fake paychecks on camera and they claim to be on the verge of homelessness, with some even faking illness. And it works, because the audience's sympathy is real even when absolutely nothing else about the content is. This is why a lot of people consider this type of content as a grift and one of the worst we've seen in a minute. So the formula exists and it's profitable, but that raises an obvious question. Paolo from Tokyo proved this format could work 7 years ago, so why did the grift version only blow up now? Well, the answer is honestly kind of bleak, and it says more about the audience than it does about the creators. I think most people would agree that the pre-COVID era, for all its problems, felt simpler. The cost of living hadn't yet spiraled into crisis territory, and there was still a general sense that things were, broadly speaking, going to be fine. That baseline optimism is gone for a lot of people now. The Western world in 2025 and 2026 feels like it's caught in a permanent cycle of overlapping crises. Housing, inflation, political instability, the erosion of job security, and the creeping dread of automation. People will feel trapped, and when people feel trapped, they don't reach for aspirational content. They reach for content that mirrors their condition. They want to see someone else stuck in the same grind, struggling with the same exhaustion, because shared suffering is a form of validation. That's what these salaryman channels are selling. Emotional validation. Emotional validation through vicarious suffering. And the Japanese setting gives it an exotic, almost cinematic quality that makes it feel more poignant than, say, watching a tired accountant from Ohio eat a sad desk lunch. The neon-lit Tokyo streets, with their pristine convenience stores and packed trains at midnight, still display the same burnout, but it's aesthetically beautiful, and that makes people watch longer. And here's where it gets paradoxical. The explosion of AI-generated content across YouTube in the last 2 years created a massive backlash. People became hyper-aware of synthetic voices, AI-generated imagery, and automated content farms, and the only way people know that a video is 100% real is if it's filmed by a real person and shows real life. Lots of people will only stick around these days if the content feels definitively human. And the salaryman channels, by their very design, pass that test. There's no AI voice, no generated footage, nothing that screams AI slop. It's a real person in a real city eating real food. The subtitles might be written by ChatGPT, but regular viewers can't tell because subtitles have always looked the same whether a human typed them or a machine did. The format is basically immune to the AI detection instinct that kills other types of AI-generated content on site. So you've got a perfect storm. A Western audience that's more depressed than ever, a historical fascination with Japan that's been supercharged by a decade of fascination of East Asian culture, particularly anime, and a desperate hunger for real content at a time when everything else on the platform feels synthetic. These channels walked straight into that gap. Ultimately, there are a few uncomfortable truths buried in this story, and I think they're worth stating plainly. The demand for human-made content is real. People are tired of AI slop, and they'll actively seek out creators who feel authentic. That's healthy. But what's less healthy is the specific type of human content that performs best right now: misery. And it's not the type of misery that gets solved at the end. It's not about maybe overcoming or avoiding misery. It's about just enduring it. Sitting in it. The audience doesn't want a redemption arc, they want to not feel alone in the dark. We saw this pattern play out recently with the TikTok creator Hub's life. He built a massive following by documenting his average 9-to-5 job as a benefits analyst under the brand of normalizing the norm. Millions of people tuned in because they saw their own routine work lives reflected back at them. However, when he quit that job to become a full-time influencer, his audience immediately turned on him. People weren't interested in watching his life improve, they watched because seeing him stuck in the exact same corporate grind validated their own situations. There's another uncomfortable dimension here though. This format works specifically because it's set in Japan, and I don't think we can ignore why. The Western audience's fascination with Japan is deep-rooted and heavily romanticized. Japan exists in the Western imagination as this hyper-modern, aesthetically perfect, deeply disciplined society. When you show suffering against that backdrop, it feels tragic in a cinematic way. The contrast between the gleaming city and the exhausted worker is visually and emotionally potent in a way that wouldn't translate if the exact same format were applied to, say, Mumbai or Lagos. The audience's empathy is real, but it's selective, and that selectivity is shaped by cultural biases that these content farmers understand and exploit. The final piece is that YouTube's algorithm has no mechanism to flag this content, and that's genuinely interesting from a platform perspective. Think about what the algorithm looks at: watch time, retention curves, click-through rates, and comment engagement. By every one of those metrics, these videos are performing beautifully. People watch them start to finish because the voyeuristic POV footage is compelling. They click because the thumbnails trigger curiosity and sympathy, and the comment sections are overwhelmingly positive, full of people saying "stay strong" and "you deserve better." There's nothing for the algorithm to penalize. With AI Slop, the platform can at least try to detect synthetic voices or generated images, but the salaryman channels don't use any of that. They're exploitative, but they're human-made, and the algorithm doesn't have a metric for sincerity. As long as the engagement numbers are healthy, the recommendation engine will keep pushing these videos to every burned-out Westerner who's ever searched for anything related to Japan. The correction hasn't happened yet, and honestly, it might not, at least not from the platform side. At the end of the day, the fake salaryman pipeline is a case study in how modern exploitation works on YouTube. You take a real cultural phenomenon, Japan's brutal work culture, and you strip it of all its context and specificity. You replace it with a fictional character acting out a caricature designed to trigger the maximum amount of Western sympathy. You use AI to write the subtitles and maybe a phone or a GoPro to shoot the footage, and then you let the platform's own mechanics do the rest. The algorithm promotes it, the audience watches it, and the comment section defends it against anyone who asks questions. The people who make these videos aren't documenting anything. They're performing poverty for profit, and the reason it works so well right now is that the audience is in genuine pain. People are struggling and people are exhausted. And when someone offers them a beautifully shot, subtitled reflection of that exhaustion, set in a city they've always been fascinated by, they don't stop to ask whether it's real. They just feel seen. And until enough people understand how it works, the pipeline isn't going anywhere. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, and let us know if there are any other grifts or modern YouTube formats you want us to break down for you. Myself and my fellow YouTube expert Rahman are also available for Calendly calls for anyone who wants to improve the quality of their channel in a genuine way, unlike some of the grifts we feature here. Anyways, let us know what you think of the Salaryman Japan videos, and if you had this particular grift figured out already, or if this video came as news for you. Thank you guys for watching, and stay curious.